back to Mike Drop Barbecue. What Mike Drop Barbecue is teaching people is that app slavery is not a business; it's a scam. And instead of playing the app slavery game, we have the individual power and action in this present moment to use app slavery as a lead development tool to start our own businesses. And anyone that is still in the app slavery game should be looking, like Jeff Watts shows people, for a way to cut out the parasite that is sucking all of the money out of the economy. None going to the person doing the labor, that would be you. None going to the retailer, although often those retailers are colluding and collaborating with the large corporations regardless. We're back. We're back. Excellent. We're back. Hey, Necro. Erps. Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. So, Jeff Watts, good guy. He is teaching people how to start their own rideshare business and to either do cash or card acceptance with available technology, to work with partners or not, to work solo, or in a number of different ways to maximize your income for your time. Because anybody that is actually doing a job, doing something for compensation, whether it's a job or whether it's just a gig, which is a short-term labor contract, if you will, is trading their time for money. And one of the things that Brian of DoorDash Sucks uh, and Gig Apps Exposed and I talk about often is that the wages out there, whether they be through app slavery or through even W 2 jobs, are now so low in general that the value of your time can supersede the dollars that are received from your labor. Right? If going out and using your assets and your labor and your risk and your health and life on behalf of a corporation or a business entity of some type, a business person, even an individual that employs you, you have to get a reward compensatory for what you're giving up. You're giving up your free time and your peace of mind. So if you're spending all your time and energy just trying to get to work, through work, and survive it and cover the expenses of doing it, one could very well argue that you would have been better by just staying home and not doing any work at all. Because when you stay home and don't work for a corporation, you can cut your personal expenses, particularly in the app slavery game where all those expenses have been put onto the back of the laborer. You can save all of that effort and time and risk and your life and invest in yourself. Pretty easy investment to win given how low the compensation is. That's the reason why living wage employment or living wage for your labor is so very, very critical. Because if you're not making a living wage in whatever a working human can do per week, let's call it 40 hours per week, since that's somewhat of an American traditional standard, though not really anymore because there are no traditional standards. But let's and because there's special laws for, did you know, migrant laborers, a full-time week is 58 hours. Isn't that cute? They get to work 18 more hours than the average American here in Oregon by law before they're even overtime. So the only rule is it's a scam. The only rule is that labor is being abused and used and unfairly compensated in the process. That's why the stream that I kicked us all out of was called "It's Not You," because it's not you. It's never been you. You are not the problem. Labor has never been the problem. Uh, Immigrants, for that matter, have never been the problem. No American has ever gotten more because immigrants get less. That's not the way that oligarchs compensate. And that's not the way corporations compensate. As you get less and the immigrants come in and are doing worse and get scapegoated, the rich get richer. Now, will the immigrants take your jobs? Sure, because you have a value for your time that you've calculated out based upon the current labor pool. When we throw a whole bunch of new people in there, what are they doing? They are willing to work for many, many reasons, less money than you. So all of a sudden, your wages are getting pulled down to the point where you have to make the decision: is this even worth my time anymore? Right? You could be like me, where you're 56 years old and you might be pretty healthy and strong, but the tendons in your elbows and your shoulders and stuff aren't going to hold up to manual labor anymore. Our working life for hard labor is not that terribly long. And if you get to the point where you're seen as nothing but labor, then what are you when you can't work? An expense. Well, you don't want to be an expense of an empire that's looking to off a whole bunch of expenses, do you? No, you don't. You do not. You absolutely do not want to be at the butt end of an empire that is financially crashing. And it's not financially crashing on its own. Why is it financially crashing? We'll talk about that. It's financially crashing because the corporations, the billionaires that influence the corporations, BlackRock's, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Larry Page, all of these big hitters in international banking are calling the shots. And the rest of it is highly for show, because what we have is really uh, a an inhumane empire that is causing problems here domestically for the people that were born here and call ourselves Americans, and causing problems for nations and governments and peoples all over the world with untold chaos. And this isn't about political party. This is all of the politicians, all of the military industrial complex, all of the prison industrial complex. Uh, so what I wanted to do today to a little bit is to share some concepts with you that I'm writing about, in addition to the gig economy and full dash closure. Um, Share some topics that I'm writing about, show you uh, a little bit of that research that I do and why I believe the things that I say. Because one of the things that we have to get over in this nation is opinions. Everybody's got one. What are they worth? Not much. Uh, when I share an opinion with you, or when I assert any of these things with you, what I want to be able to do is tell you why I believe that and what research I've done that made me think that way. And so, again, to that end, I want to share a little bit of this recent work with you, because it all overlaps, of course, with app slavery and presidential elections and our trauma and our fight for survival against an economy that just seems to be stacked against us. Right? Less jobs, lower wages, uncontrollable inflation, and billionaires. And so here's just a basic problem. When there are billionaire heirs polluting the planet as there are now, whether you have 100, 1,000, or $10,000 in your bank account, that's essentially zero. That's essentially worthless. That's essentially you're a non-economic entity. Nothing is tailored to you. Your existence is just a burden to the empire. And if that's the calculus of human life, then what's going to happen is that our lives are going to continue to get worse and worse and worse and worse. I don't want that. I don't want to see you go through that. I don't want to live through that. Uh, but the end of empires tend to be very ugly. And when this empire ends, the reason it will end is because It was dishonest and built upon fraud and theft and corporate fascism. So we have an election coming up. Everybody's very, very concerned about what's happening. In the present moment, today, there is a president. It's August 15th. So, by my count, we got 3.5 months of 2024 to still survive before any potential new leader might do anything. So, back to some sports analogies. Let's keep our eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the present moment. What's happening right now? What are you doing right now? How are you exchanging your labor for compensation? And if you are exchanging your labor for compensation that is not enough to live, you might want to ask yourself whether you should opt out of that system and refuse to do that until and if someone wants to compensate you fairly for your time. Is $1 better than zero? Yeah, most people would argue $1 is, in fact, more and therefore better than zero. But if $1 is your compensation, is it better than zero? Not if you have to work for it, because working for a dollar doesn't make any sense. You don't want to work for something that's worthless, and a dollar to you is worthless. It's not going to do anything unless, you're into 99-cent candy, and that's going to poison you. And probably contains forever chemicals so it doesn't stick to your teeth that you're losing because you have no dental insurance. See how this works? So if $1 is better than zero, $1 of employment is not better than no employment. No employment is better because no employment gives you your health, your mental wellness, your ability to go out and experience nature in the present employment, your ability to speak up and say, this is bullshit. I don't want to do it. I'm too good for this. I have too much value for this. You may not devalue me as a human being. You may not devalue me as labor. I do not give you permission to devalue and enslave me just because you shoved wages ever and ever closer to zero. And what does Appslavery do? Appslavery uses fake markets, a video game in which you're the human avatar driving around the streets risking your life to push your compensation ever closer to zero. And it doesn't have to reach zero to not be worth your time. It's already not worth your time. I did it. I did it for 16 months out of a 2-year period in 3 different states, in multiple different rural and urban markets. And what I have to show for all of that labor, all of those miles driven, all of those expenses, all of that, everything. Let's see, I came at it with terrible health, almost unable to walk because my hip was so thrown out by getting in and out of a sedan 25 times a day. I was miserable and unhealthy, and my car blew its water pump and timing belt, and that was $2,000, and I was out of business. Now, I knew that was going to happen because that's what app slavery is. It was just a matter of time. Our friend Brian in the chat here, ask Brian how his car is running. It's not. His car is gone. Brian doesn't have a car now. That's app slavery. That's fucking app slavery. That's app slavery. Want to know where my car is? I fixed it all up. Now it's parked outside my house, uninsured, and I don't drive it. But I still have it. And I don't drive it, and I don't insure it, and I don't, if it gets stolen, it's gone. But anyway, that's where app slavery will leave you. Poorer, worse off, with a destroyed vehicle. Now, these ghouls of the corporate world are going to make it very, very difficult to ever have a vehicle again if you're a poor person. They will make insurance unaffordable. They will put rules and laws around different kinds of cars that can and can't be owned and driven for different purposes. They have surveillance technologies built into insurance, built into your credit score, built into your car. This is this surveillance state. You were the guinea pigs. Congratulations, app slaves. You were the guinea pigs, really, for the surveillance state. Uh, these apps not only know everything that you're doing, they know the other apps you're using, they know the information. They can probably turn on your camera or your microphone and listen to what you're saying when they want to. Uh, God knows the access that is used and abused by corporate fascists like Peter Thiel and like the ghouls of DoorDash, Tony Shu, like the ghouls of Uber, Dara Karasharovsky, Kashashowski. I don't know. I haven't looked up Dara's name for a while. But anyway, like the ghoul of Uber, like the ghouls of Lyft, if it even matters, because they're, you know, circling the drain. These are monopolies. These are monopolies that are designed to force out the competition before they exploit you ever closer to zero. Now, we have things going on in our nation and world. Let's talk about those a little bit in terms of some information that you can take home and read. Okay, there's Substack page. That's full Dashclosure. If you guys don't know, the first 4 chapters of full Dashclosure are up here on Substack for free with audiobook. I read it to you. That's pretty cool. There's a lot of other podcasts, uh, including podcasts that have gone on. You're going on the Show Me the Money Club, talking to those guys, going on uh, different talk shows and such, discussing Appslavery and really trying to hash out, which is what happened over the last year or two. What is this thing called Appslavery? Who are these companies that called themselves the gig economy, and what is it really? Which is the greatest scam in the history of humanity in terms of labor exploitation. Thanks, Cherry. Yeah, so Cherry, that's thank you for that, Cherry. So this year, following my own advice and directive, I have tried to focus upon my own health and focus upon the process and just daily getting things done. And I have gone from about 246 pounds to about 206 pounds. So by my maths, that's around 40 pounds of walking and working this year. And there ain't no Ozempic involved in any of it. It's just hard work and getting it done. That's also why I'm here talking to you, because our mental health comes from getting appropriate attention to our stress levels, getting appropriate attention to our bodies, getting appropriate attention to our families and to our consciousness, and connecting with the natural world. Nice to see you here, Oracle Fast Money Trader. There are very few people whose monetary expertise I have less respect for than you, so I'm glad that you are here. So um, let's start off with this is I'm not gonna play the video terribly much for you here now, but this is a quick appearance that I made on AM Wake Up. That's a fun show, uh, very different point of view, very diverse point of view uh, from its guests, and I like that. Just like the gig economy, it doesn't matter what we call ourselves politically or how we identify. We are all in the same. Uh, we're all in the same world here together. We're all in the same economy. We are all the have-nots of the American empire. And make no mistake about it, if you do not know that you are a have not of the American empire, you are truly a delusional individual. We probably have one wealthy person here in this entire chat, Oracle Fast Money Trader, who is so unconscious as to not be able to understand the basic human tenets of existence that I'm explaining to you. And I think it's great that Oracle Fast Money Trader is here because it helps people to see multiple points of view. It should not be threatening to me that somebody dislikes what I'm saying or disagrees with what I'm saying. What I'm saying really is not about my opinion. What I'm saying is about the research that I do on a daily basis. Uh, I'm going to read this for you. I'm going to put on glasses so I can actually see it. And just want to share some of these things. I'll try not to belabor anything boring here. I popped in at the 3 hour mark on AM Wake Up and the Independent Review Friday morning, August 2nd, to talk about techno feudalism, Whitney Webb's work, and on unlimited hangout and our shared societal sense making attempts at recovery from narcissistic empire abuse. That's everything I study and think about outside of the most daily basic life tasks these days. We are in a meta crisis. A meta crisis is the confluence of multiple crises: war, famine, uh, poverty, joblessness, artificial intelligence, the changing of labor, immigration, refugees. We can go on and on and on. This is a meta crisis, the kind that humanity has never had before. Daniel Schmachtenberger of the Consilience Project uh, says it so well. Think of Genghis Khan, right? A lot of us may be related to the great Genghis Khan, the Mongolian leader who apparently raped and pillaged many very successfully and produced a good percentage of our human genetic pool in the process. Nevertheless, Genghis Khan was one person, had one army, and it was all physical. Now, you take that power for destruction and genocide, you take AI, you take automated war making weapons, you take the power of destructivity that is now available to any individual actor, rich or poor. And you've got an entire planet littered with people that can now uh, rape and pillage and use their psychopathy to hurt humanity. That's a very frightening innovation in technology, and a poorly thought out one at that, right? So, what Daniel Schmachtenberger argues so effectively is that we need new systems and new incentives. If the incentive is if the incentive of corporate world is profit at any cost, well, your life is any cost. It's a very easy calculus to do. Any cost is poisoning you. Any cost is selling you drugs that you don't need. Any cost is having doctors do procedures that you don't need. Any cost is running an Appslavery scam on an impoverished American labor force, right? So if you're willing to accept any cost, you're gonna get a real pounding by the system. So Cherry makes a good point. Okay, so I don't like that you single out DoorDash, but obviously there's no more middle class, and we are a third world country. Well, okay, so why do I single out DoorDash? It's not because I don't like Tony Shu. It's because DoorDash is the innovator and the gorilla of the space, Jerry. That's all there is to it. It's just market dynamics. It's the same reason I single out Uber, because they're the monopolies that matter. It's the same reason I'd single out X or Twitter and Elon Musk. It's the same reason I'd single out Peter Thiel and Planeteer, right? Who you may not know is planning to make you a prisoner of the surveillance state, regardless of whether Democrats or Republicans take the White House. So the reason why I select any given company is that the only companies that matter in monopolies are monopolies, or in a monopolistic market are monopolies. So that's why I single that out, Cherry. And look, I mean, Tony Shu was and his crew were great innovators in app slavery. Very, 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 very evil. Truly comprehensively evil plot. Um, we're in meta crisis, as detailed so well by the work of Daniel Schmachtenberger and the Consilience Project. It was great to talk to Slow News Day, Steve. We're all on a journey together now in search of a survivable society and natural world. The American empire isn't leading us there. Now, what is narcissistic abuse? Narcissistic abuse is characterized by a number of things, but among those that you would recognize are gaslighting, uh, narratives, and explanations that are created to trigger, exploit, and misrepresent the target. Understanding our present moment, societal gaslighting, grief, isolation, and learned helplessness requires accepting that our senses and selves are abused and confused by empires. It's not you. Dr. Ramani Durvasula's narcissistic abuse and recovery work is a survival fundamental. I have watched probably 30 of her videos on YouTube, and every single one is excellent. Um, how do narcissistic human traits and behaviors manifest in our present moment? We're victims of abuse and betrayal by those we were conditioned and even mandated to trust. Schools, doctors, uh, different regulators or governmental agencies. Some of you maybe went through a divorce and had to go through family court. You have to trust those maniacs to judge what should happen with your children, with your family. Boy, that's a system you don't ever want to be a part of, I'll assure you that. Oligarchs, corporations, world leaders, and governments, right? We're mandated that we trust those people, but they betrayed us. And so when they betrayed us, when we're sitting here working our full-time work and it's not enough to pay our rent, what's happening to us? Well, that's gaslighting. That's narcissistic abuse. Thus, I highly recommend Dr. Amani's videos and our work for our edification. That's for our learning. Um, Corporations, billionaires, and governments aren't saving anyone, even themselves. So Elon interviewing Trump is full of shit. Peter Thiel full of shit. Kamala and Trump full of shit. They're all full of shit. Okay. If they were going to save you, you wouldn't be where you are right now. And this has been going on for years and years and years and years and years and years before Trump, before Biden, and before that. Disconnect from the influence of their pervasive AI driven death cult propaganda to the greatest extent possible, and prepare to disconnect even further when you're forced to do so for self preservation. And I would argue that's where we are right now. We are now in the self preservation phase. We are now in the phase where you have to decide, is it better for you to slave, or is it better for you to save your energies and put them into your family and your community and your own survival? And really, nobody's going to be able to do that calculus besides you. But our friend Glitch Dash, who's been doing some broadcasts lately, has ridden the enshittification of the gig economy into now making around $10 an hour or so before expenses, which is much less than $10 an hour after expenses. He's stuck in a small market in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And if you ever doubt it, tune in and watch yourself some Glitch Dash. He's an entertaining, funny guy, and he's a real good guy, and he tells the truth about it. And this process of enshittification, a word created by a journalist named Cory Doctorow, means that once they get you into a system or an app like Uber or Lyft or DoorDash or Fiverr or uh, any other app that claims to be some type of an economic engine, that a process of enshittification takes place where it again, because of corporate incentives, because of the wrong incentives to people and corporations that aren't people but eat them, the wrong things happen. Peter Thiel and other techno-feudalist ghouls are monsters, by AI leaps and eons more dangerous to life on Earth than cruel rulers before them. That's the Genghis Khan analogy. OpenAI sells bullshit at the cost of veracity, which is truth, right? OpenAI sells bullshit. Ed Zitron is a very good writer podcaster who has a podcast called Better Offline, and he had three academics on, and they essentially took apart the information systems of Chat GPT, and they showed very conclusively that it's a bullshit system and not a let me see if I can remember the classifications of bullshit, not a hard bullshit system or a soft bullshit system, But actually, uh, hard bullshit is you're lying. Soft bullshit is you don't know you're lying. And the other kind of bullshit that this is the bullshit where you don't care. It doesn't matter. They just want a plausible answer. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. So hold on a minute. Time out. So you've now got this engine that's supposed to support everything from starting new businesses to web content and everything else. And the one thing that it doesn't come with is trustable and verifiable accuracy for the information it produces. Well, then how the fuck is it useful? Because it's not. It's a bullshit machine, right? If you write a paper, an academic paper, or a paper of any type based upon Chat GPT, it's going to have bullshit in it. If you have it argue a legal case, it's going to make up legal briefs that don't exist and cases that don't exist and bullshit. Why? Because that's how it's programmed by humans. It's not intelligence. Artificial intelligence, you're right. The reason it's such a great name is that it's anything but. It is highly unintelligent. It's just a computer system built by humans with all the biases built in from all the data and how they put it together. So don't believe the hype. Do not believe the hype. Let's see. It's been 1 year since the Glitchgate scandal. I made you a video. It's here on YouTube. You can watch it after this if you want to. It was about a week or so ago, I think. Or no, a week or so ago. About a month or so ago, 3 weeks ago, somewhere around there. Okay, so that's narcissistic empire abuse. And again, we're going to get back into this concept of abuse and healing because this is what's happening to you. If you are always cherry pictures, I'm listening while I drop off a sushi order to a $7 million house. That's right on. So this is the experience, right? This is the way society is divided. There's the $7 million houses, and then there's those of us that drop off sushi to them. Like those two are not in the same world. Those two do not inhabit the same economy. Your money is gone. It's been taken. It's gone. It has been sucked out of the economy quite intentionally. And here's the wild thing about capital. If you so we call businesses or banks or whatever, call it capital. Capital has no requirement to employ labor. They can just keep all their money and not give you any labor. They can just keep all their money and not start companies. They can just keep all their money and close companies. They can just keep all their money and not provide jobs to anybody. That's what they're doing. That's what's happening here. Now they're not going to tell you that. If you watch CNN, you're going to hear that the wars are going great and there's no inflation. Right? The wars are going great and there's no inflation. It's 1984 again. George Orwell. Uh, George Orwell knew that shit would happen. Hot facts, Robert Reese. Good to see you, brother. So this is some deep stuff here. This is some deep stuff right here. I when I sent you a video before, which I guess was probably about on August 1st or August 2nd, I guess it was. I was headed out camping. Well, here's my camping pictures. Lucky us. Get some camping pictures. Abundance or ownership? Abundance or ownership? What do your primate senses tell you? We are primates. And the fact that we are primates will come even more clearly into focus when I show you the next evidence. So again, for our friend Oracle Fast Money Trader, who probably doesn't have the attention span that a flea would spend on this podcast, if he were here, he could learn something. Please, Robert, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Anyone, by the way, is welcome to share this stream. That is absolutely encouraged and appreciated. The world is abundant, yet allegedly owned by endless rich dickholes whom we've never seen in our present moment, nor observed in our physical space. What is real? How do you know? Why do kings need heads? Immigrants, refugees, and war victims, human beings receiving less and having less, being shut out as stateless, homeless, and dying, will never give the proletariat, that's the wage earners, that's you, that's me, more. I'm going to say that again. Immigrants, refugees, and war victims, human beings receiving less and having less, being shut out as stateless, homeless, and dying, will never give the proletariat more. Their sacrifices to greed will never deliver an end that justifies evil means. So simple, yet so obfuscated, is the truth and peace. This is a picture I took. This is the Angel's Rest. No, not Angel's Rest Trail. This is the Eagle Creek Trail. I apologize. Uh, Eagle Creek Trail in Columbia Gorge of Oregon. Human migration and survival. So we're seeing that right now. Why are immigrants coming here? Well, because immigrants have always gone everywhere. Human migration has never stopped, not once, ever. Okay? And it never will. And you and any wall or moat or boat or spikes ain't going to keep it from going because people are going to go where they have to go to survive. So let's try to be open minded primates for just a moment. Scarcity is the fear created by lies. Scarcity is the fear created by lies. And the scarcity mindset, now I'm back to me, I'm not reading myself anymore. The scarcity mindset is what keeps us trapped in app slavery. Scapegoating humans migrating in search of survival as, quote, immigrants and, quote, deportees, end quote, is heinous genocidal scapegoating that's working as Americans and other developed nations fester in bankers' wars and austerity. Austerity means they've cut off all our means to support ourselves and not given us a way to survive. That's austerity. Good old Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Woman of England, who many celebrated as dead, was known for bringing austerity to the UK. And still subsist there today in empire-created poverty. Take from you, do indigenous peoples who occupied the Columbia River Gorge since humans began living in there take from you with their reservations and fishing? Of course they don't. This is a picture of the confluence above the Bonneville Dam in the Eagle Creek inflow at the fishing boundary. And right around these fishing boundaries are where all of the Native Americans that live on the reservations there fish from their rustic fishing platforms with long nets. Only Native Americans are allowed to do that. And then they're allowed to do whatever they want with those fish. If you go to the parking lots of the town there at the bridge, which is called Bridge of the Gods, you will see multiple multi-generation Native American families there selling salmon and steelhead and things that they catch there. So they not only use them for their own subsistence, they're allowed to sell them off the reservation. Holy moly, that's hard to say. Off the reservation to people that are traveling in that area. That's also a key crossing for the Pacific Crest Trail, those of you that know hiking. Never in American history have impoverished wage slaves received the more that was powerfully generated by damming. Damming. You can say that word and spell that word in two different places. Never in American history have impoverished wage slaves received the more that was powerfully generated by damming great rivers and flooding great valleys. Never, 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 never. Never have they received more. The more always goes to the corporations and the oligarchs. Narratives are cult lies and delusions serving anti-human objectives, literally bad human thinking. Only our present moment is real. No action is possible in futures which don't exist. One may only live, act, and be now. It's this is the only and best truth I could possibly ever give you. And if you focus on these things, your life will change because you cannot take action in the present moment. You do not have, you cannot take action outside of the present moment. You can worry about what's going to happen if, but that doesn't make that real. That means that in the present moment, you're worrying about a future that doesn't exist. This is a picture I took that night. And these people are still camped there. These are people living on Willamette Boulevard. We're all refugees of techno feudalism and empires now. Waiting for a change or pretending you have a vote that can deliver change through a corrupt system is insane. Will someone be offering you a reservation to live on? Where else are we supposed to go? And the caption under the photo that I took there is, "Where do you go when there is nowhere to go?" Portland, Oregon, Willamette Boulevard survival. It's hard stuff. I walk by these people every single day. Very difficult. Very, very difficult. And by the way, my guess, if you just wanted to put out in like the human effort involved, living in those tents on the bluff above the Willamette River on Willamette Boulevard is harder work than a full-time job. By far, a full-time job that provided housing and food and stuff would be far easier than the lives these people are living. So when you see homeless people, if you assume that's what they want and that's what they would choose and that's why they're there is because they fucking deserve it, I'm going to argue that you are very foolish and delusional. And you're probably doing that to protect your own ego because that could be you and that could be me. I love this podcast. This is one of my heroes, Dr. Robert Sapolsky, and he does a podcast with his adult daughter. This was episode 23 of Father Offspring Interviews, and he talks about free will, and we're going to get into that in the next article here. And of course, this Substack is up for you to read freely. I don't charge anyone money for access to anything that I've ever written on social media or anywhere else. I do plan on having some books you can print out, and I hope when we do that, you guys will buy some. But I don't like to put a gate between me and you because I'm not saving this up for later. There is no later. I might be dead tomorrow. Those books are a fantasy in my future. And maybe I'll do them. Maybe I fucking won't. This isn't an ego project. I want you guys to learn something. I want you guys to fucking survive. I want you to wake up and take control of this horseshit empire so that you don't spend the rest of your life in techno feudalist slavery. That's what I want. That's my dream for you. I don't really care about books in particular, except as a tool. Lucky me, I've lost almost all the possessions and everything else that I've ever had in my life. So, you know, that makes it easier to awaken and to lose attachments when you have nothing left. It's a great benefit of poverty. Right? Poverty is a great teacher. Pain is a great teacher. We awaken because the pain becomes so intense that we have no other choice. It's either we awaken or we off ourselves. And offing ourselves is a really bad thing to do if you got kids or family that care about you or friends that care about you. There's an experience to be had here. What is it? Well, that's a fucking different question. Does it have to be miserable? Well, that's a fucking different question too. That's a different question too. Are we free? Is this capitalism? Well, there's a good fucking question, huh? Donations are ownership. Funding is ownership. Ownership is what corporations have of humanity. Woo! Sometimes I go back and read my own writing, and it makes me think, wow, that's really good stuff, Jeff. Somebody should read that. Donations are ownership. Funding is ownership. Ownership is what corporations have of humanity. That is 100% truth, right? When Elon Musk donates his time and platform to Donald Trump, he's owning Donald Trump. Elon Musk has more power than Donald Trump. Donald Trump's a bad, old, fat, orange actor, and I don't like him, and I never have. Don't like Joe Biden, never have either. Don't like Kamala Harris, never have either. So, hey, it's 3 for fucking 3. Donations are ownership. Funding is ownership. Ownership is what corporations have of humanity. How? They live in our heads. They own our societal collective consciousness and group ego. Group ego is even more powerful than individual ego. You know how powerful your own individual ego is, how you can be hurt, how something feels inside. Well, group ego, that cult formation it forms, that's even more powerful. And then you get group think, and then you get coercion, and you get societal expectations. And then that all weighs against our genetic dispositions and our upbringing and how much stress our mother was under when she was pregnant with us and whether we grew up in poverty or not, and everything. It's all connected. one of the great things that Daniel Schmachtenberger, yeah, Cherry says, I became a minimalist after I was broke. That's a fact. Most people learn that when you lose, and Cherry, you can say if you agree with this, when you lose a lot of your possessions, some of it hurts, but a lot of times it's a relief that a lot of it's gone too because you've been hauling around so long. So Daniel Schmachtenberger talks about a an indigenous American writer, and what is colonialism? What is colonialism? And right now we're undergoing app colonialism, digital colonialism, where the American techno feudalists and Western techno feudalists are exporting their surveillance state technology and abusive artificial intelligence based technologies into other countries. Well, what is colonialism? It's the act of separating what can't be separated, separating the connectedness of our world, right? So a tree isn't a tree. A tree is a part of the earth, which is a part of uh, the human race, which is a part of our environment and solar system and galaxy and all that stuff. All of this stuff is connected. And the lies of the Western Empire and colonialism is that you can just take the trees and use them to make money, or take the gold and diamonds and use them to make money, and just leave a smoking hill of rubble and don't worry about the people that live there because manifest destiny and head west and all that shit, right? So if you believe that things can just be separated out and used uh, at your beck and desire, you're missing the connected aspect of our present moment and world. And if you miss the connected aspect of our present moment and world, you're missing all of it. Don't think just because these billionaires are powerful and rich that they are happy, awake, decent people. These are very likely some of the sickest, most awful people that have ever been alive since the human race was here. Truly, truly awful people. Genghis Khan, but with more money and more reach, because now we live in a world where one person can truly have a global uh, reach of destruction. Corporate organized crime pays. Lawless, predatory global corporations will end humanity, or humans can change this broken system of poison and genocide. When crime carries only a business consequence, there are no deterrents to boundless fraud. Fines are just the cost of doing business. What standards? Who makes them? Who will protect your life? What fucking endless shenanigans are going on in our decaying empire rape physical world, underpinned by an oligarch, billionaire, puking, techno feudalist AI war machine? Wake up and tune in. And this is a tremendous video that this episode is one of a series. Uh, it will explain to you that essentially the entire American financial system was set up as a Ponzi scheme, set up so that bankers could make themselves extraordinarily wealthy and powerful at your expense and with your labor. New systems and incentives. Again, something I highly recommend. This is Daniel Schmachtenberger, the man with the Gandalf beard, looking good. Uh, New systems and new incentives are required. Extinction driving incentives must cease. The Consilience Project, including Daniel Schmachtenberger, leads academic process in planetary survival and peace. There are social answers for humans to work for. We can use our primate brains to survive. We can choose peace. So let's go back and review, what is this about? Abundance or ownership? Do we have to carve up the natural world uh, to grab our piece and hoard it and keep it away from everybody else, or are we all in this together? Now, American capitalism loves to sell that, exceptionalism, that American dream, that lie that we can do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. Humans were not born to survive alone. You never would have survived past the first day alone. You'd have been a dead infant. Humans only survive because we are together in family units, and we're together, and those family units are together in larger groups, and those larger groups then can choose other groups or not. But you got to have a family unit and a larger group to really survive. That's the way humans and primates are. So, how would one learn more about that? Well, wrote this 5 days ago. Stop the atrocities of war, torture, refugees, poverty, and prisons cannot be justified. Stop. The atrocities of war, torture, refugees, poverty, and prisons cannot be justified. Now, why do I say that? Why do I say that those things that are staples of the American empire can't be justified? Well, because human behavior and research and psychology and primate behavior shows us that to be a fact. We are the same, a species of primates. Narratives conjured individually, culturally, by media and governments are by definition biased, incorrect, and ignorant. False narrative thinking blocks present moment awareness. This is the theme of my work, life, and belief system. So, false narrative thinking blocks present moment awareness. So, as soon as you start thinking about uh, the DoorDash app and whether your acceptance rate is going to make it make it give you more or less, or you start thinking about why it was that your wife said "Have a nice day" in such an aggravated voice this morning, and whether you know your friend is going to go homeless or not. All of those things, uh, you're creating narratives and stories and cause and effect scenarios that you don't have the information to create. Now, your mind's going to do it anyway because that's how we make sense of the world, which is why focusing on ourselves in the present moment and right here is how we stay rational. Because if we get outside of what we can see and touch and smell and feel and hear and see and know, then what happens? We start falling for cons. We start falling for lying politicians and lying oligarchs and lying technology and lying bankers and bad jobs and abuse and narcissistic psychopaths. That's what happens when we get outside of the environment that we can sense and trust effectively. Again, this is scary, scary stuff because the people we're supposed to be able to trust, the people we're supposed to be able to vote for to have our best interest acted out on a national scale, they're not there for us. They're betraying us. They already betrayed us, and it's too fucking late for them. This empire is not going on the up, right? This is an empire that's quite spectacularly crashing, and the techno feudalists love it, right? Who are those techno feudalists? Uh, we wanted to, a minute ago we were talking about the techno feudalist endless rich dick bags. Uh, Let me see if I can find those endless rich dick bags for you. These guys. So the sick part is that these guys took this picture for the PayPal mafia, non-ironically. These are global organized criminals that have colluded to screw you into the ground. These people right here, if you rounded up those people right there and put them in a cage, the world would be a much, much better place immediately. These are dangerous, evil psychopaths. Okay? They're con men. They're robbing the global economy of billions and trillions of dollars on a regular basis. So those are the guys. Those are the guys. Do they look 80? Do they look tan? Do they look like Donald Trump? Do they look like Kamala Harris? Do they look like anybody you can vote for? You can't vote for them. And guess what? They support both parties and all parties and no parties, and they win no matter what. This is why there are no regulations on Appslavery. This is why there are no regulations in our economy in terms of antitrust and monopoly and stuff. There's minor stuff right now. They're jousting with Google, but how long do you think that's going to take? So, of course, the news lately has been that Google is an evil monopoly and does kind of all kinds of evil maniacal stuff in its searches, just like Uber and DoorDash do evil maniacal stuff with their artificial intelligence and the results of their system. Gee, it's like they're all the same, isn't it? It's like they're all the same, just here to screw you into the ground forever. It's kind of what it's like because it's kind of the way that it is, and it's terrible. It's truly tragic, and it also means that uh, we can't trust the system and people that we were raised to trust. That's a lot to swallow. It's a lot to swallow that you have been betrayed by your nation. It's a lot to swallow that you've been betrayed by your president. Did we watch any of this? We didn't watch it. Let's watch. We got to watch a Robert Sapolsky.
Oh, I haven't believed in this free will stuff since I was a kid. And most of the time, my first reflex is to operate like an entitled, like westernized American, whatever. I think this way and I can't function this way most of the time. It takes a whole lot of work to say, wait a second. Think about like what it is that you had no control over that got you into this like wonderfully advantageous place. Think about that person you were just having a judgment about all of that. And what we're left with is it's going to be mighty hard for everyone to decide there's no free will tomorrow, and thus society just takes off from there with no more prisons and no more meritocracy and no more CEOs with corner offices and no more. It's going to be incredibly hard.
Oh man, I love
But
that guy.
what I try to hammer through in that latter part of the book is over and over historically, we have identified realms where it turns out we don't have free will. People do stuff that they had no control over. And each time we figure that out and come up with what would be a biological explanation, not only doesn't society fall apart, the world becomes more humane. We figured out that old ladies with no teeth don't have the power to control the weather by casting witchcraft or whatever. And so it's not the 15th century anymore and burning people at the stakes when there's suddenly a storm in the middle of July. Good. We figured out witches don't exist. They don't have the power to control the weather. And it's a much better world that we don't burn old ladies at the stake anymore. We figured out at some point that having an epileptic seizure is not a sign that you were possessed by Satan. And that's good. We stopped, stopped burning epileptics at the stake as well. We figured out at some point mothers don't cause schizophrenia in their children. It's not their fault because they unconsciously hate their child. It's a neurogenetic disorder. And as soon as that was sorted out, hundreds of thousands of mothers of people with schizophrenia were absolved from, you had no control. It had nothing to do with it. It's not your fault.
So remember the narcissistic abuse disorder. It's not you. It's not you. You are being, as human beings, subjected to conditions and situations in which you have to react, and you're going to react as a primate, as a human being / primate would and will.
You really go for this, there's no free will stuff. Blame and punishment are intellectually and ethically gibberish.
So you get that? Blame and punishment are intellectually and ethically gibberish. The reason Elon Musk is rich is that his father is a South African oligarch and was a South African oligarch under apartheid. That's why he's rich. He's not rich because he's smart and brilliant and wonderful. He's rich because those were the circumstances that he was placed into. Now, he's also got all of the behaviors and the personality and everything else that comes from those conditions that he was raised into, right? So when we look at people and we're holding people up to be, you know, wonderful examples, and we look at the homeless person living in the tents on Willamette Boulevard, and we say, you know, they just don't want it bad enough. They just didn't. They just weren't good capitalists. They weren't just good laborers. Uh, Invariably, we're talking out our ass. Okay, and when we look at immigrants that simply want to live, immigrants that are part of human migration, which has always happened, and you weren't born here either, right? Wherever you came from, whatever peoples you came from, they came from somewhere else, and they came from somewhere else, and they came from somewhere else. So this idea of scapegoating human migration on behalf of empires and the borders of techno-feudalist maniacs does not make any sense, and it's not rational, because you're not going to get more. If we could instantly off every refugee in the world, just push the button and all the refugees in the world died, you would not get a penny more. You'd get nothing out of it. There would just be lots of dead fellow humans on your conscience. I don't need dead fellow humans on my conscience. I am anti-war in all conditions, in all circumstances. Wars are for bankers and for the wealthy people to make money and reset their economy. People do the dying. Yeah, so the thing is, if we had a society with better incentives and better systems, the borders would be irrelevant. The borders are a product of a broken system. And so if the borders are hurting you today economically, and well, we could argue that they are hurting you economically today, that's the product of a system that is built that way to hurt you, not a product of the people that are using it. You know, don't hate the player, hate the game. Hate the game. Those guys are just trying to live just like us. And any of us that were in their position would most likely do the same thing.
Cases it becomes better. So we got to just keep pushing and doing more and more of that, because all sorts of realms where it seems intuitively obvious right now to us that somebody chose to do, they could have done otherwise. People in the future are going to look back on that and say, exactly, here's the pathways by which that person turned out to be who they were and why they had no control over what they did at that point. And oh, what barbarians people were back in the early 21st century, imprisoning some people and punishing them based on not understanding this.
Now we're getting to imprisoning people and punishing them for being homeless, for camping on the street, for being refugees. Lock them up, send them back, beat them down. And oh, what barbarians we are.
Or telling other people that they are better, more worthy humans because they turn out to be smart at something and thus can do a successful hostile takeover of somebody's corporation.
You get that? Or telling other people that they are better, more worthy humans because they turn out to be smart at something and thus can do a successful hostile takeover of somebody's corporation. Are they better? I would argue they're not. I would argue they're not. I don't think they're better at all. I think they're the same.
You know, they'll look back on us with that same sort of view. So we got to just keep pushing against it and keep assuming anytime you think you know why somebody has just done something, anytime you think you understand what the attribution is, you're almost certainly wrong.
Okay. That's some profound stuff. Anytime you think you know and understand why somebody has just done something, you're almost certainly wrong. That's sad, isn't it? Isn't it sad that our interpretation of our fellow human beings can be so incorrect? Such bad thinking, right? Bad thinking. It's thinking, we're thinking about it. We're just doing it really fucking bad. Right on, Steve Arrow. How you doing, man? We don't need bad thinking. We need conscious thinking. We need good thinking. We need aware and awake thinking.
And you're almost certainly looking at it way too blinded, because you got to think about stuff way unexpected and below the surface and subliminal and ancient and nuanced and all of that. And you probably don't have a clue the things that went into making them who they are at that moment and why they did what they did.
Just playing devil's advocate, I actually personally agree.
That's Light Watkins. That's the person whose podcast that is. So we went through that, didn't we? This is interesting. I like this, and I think it's worth sharing with you. From the Consilience Project, Good Faith and Bad Faith Communication. In particular, let's talk about gaslighting and bad faith communication, which is what you get from the oligarchs and corporations and politicians that are currently lying to you to manipulate you today. Expressions of hubris and lack of curiosity in opposing views. Ooh, they got that one down. Refusing changes in positions based upon new information. Yeah, nailed that. Disagreements unwelcome, consensus overstated. Well, I'd say that the politicians and political parties really got that one down. Disrespect included as part of disagreement. Good. Insufficient time and other aspects of unfair process. Yeah. Avoidance or omission of careful clarifications and evidence. Daily. No attempts to find shared base realities and values. Right. Emergence of stalemates, polarizations, and simplifications. Right. So what we have is called that multipolar trap. We've got all these competing things in this world that are all sending us into a giant global crisis and economic crisis that goes along with that. Stop the atrocities of war, torture, refugees, poverty, and prisons cannot be justified. Stop. Only peace is rational. Only non-judgmental attempts at broad understanding can be sane. When the narratives emerge, the truth slips away forever. Along with it, our ability to share our common present moment. By definition, the only time in which we can save ourselves and stop being insane. Right now. Right now. Right now. Eckhart Tolle is a guy you can look up if you want to know more about the present moment. His book is one that I have probably consumed, I don't know, 50 times, be a fair guess. The Power of Now, somewhere around 50 times, probably more. Who knows? When I listen, I know what's coming next. I mean, I can't recite it to you, but I can recite it to you. Let's see where we are here. Oh yes, my from this is from yesterday. Scapegoats and rent seekers. The rent is too damn high. So a rent seeker, these guys are rent seeker. A rent seeker is what you would call businesses or oligarchs that literally buy things and then seek rent from people like you so that they can profit off it. If you absurdly scapegoat immigrants for America's problems, choose wealthy ones who, quote, came here legally, end quote, as employees of techno-feudalist monsters. Many are serving and are trapped as complicit tools of corporate AI-run bullshit machines and hold lucrative jobs in tech visa extortion scams. Now, I talked about with DoorDash a lot. DoorDash and the gig economy is known for hiring foreign engineers and bringing them in on tech visas because those guys can't blow the whistle on all the evil and shenanigans that they do, unlike American engineers who, if they lose their job with the gig app, fraud schemes, Uber, DoorDash, Lyft, etc., they don't get deported from the country with their family. If you come on a tech visa and the billionaire fires you, you got to leave the country. So that's a big penalty for somebody that came over here. How many crimes against humanity are committed due to the consequences for any foreign national who has moved their entire family in the United States to work for a billionaire? Scapegoats are cravenly chosen, not accurately identified. Scapegoats are cravenly chosen, not accurately identified. So how do we know about these techno-feudalist maniacs? Whoops. Share this tab instead. I was intending to show you this, but I wasn't. So these are the techno-feudalist maniacs. That's Peter Thiel, and that's Elon Musk pre-hair plugs. If you absurdly scapegoat immigrants for America's problems, choose wealthy ones who, quote, came here legally. And there's people protesting immigration. Again, we got to separate two things. As you suffer economically, can you say in the Appslavery game that immigration coming in has taken Appslavery interaction that you could have had? Probably so. That's by design. They're starving you out. This is part of your austerity. These people are being used as a tool to hurt you. It's not the people that are hurting you. It's the fact that the oligarchs and the corporations are using them as tools to hurt you. Whitney Webb's investigative reporting. Whitney Webb is a brilliant investigative reporter, studies the oligarchs, studies Bitcoin, studies Peter Thiel, studies all of the, says it right here, people and patents that built the financial surveillance network. And those are what Brian talks about when he talks about corporate fascism coming in. This is Whitney Webb's world. She ties all of those people. Let's see if we can go to Unlimited Hangout. I have it up here. She ties all of these people together. All of these people together in her brilliant work to show you the plan that they have. And this plan goes through regardless if it's a Democrat or a Republican in the White House. This plan went through when Trump was president before. It's been going through since Biden's been here. It's going to go through regardless of who takes the presidential office in 2025. Okay? These people are in control. The bankers and the financiers are running the show that is putting you through hell. Are American politicians complicit? Yeah, but the politicians are bought. Remember what I said before? When you know, donations and all of that's purchasing. When Elon Musk gives millions of dollars to a political candidate, he's not funding. I mean, he's not donating to them. He's buying them. Doesn't matter what you call it. He's buying them, and that is how it works. And Whitney Webb proves it beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, because again, none of you should be interested, particularly in Jeff Thomas Black's opinion. In my opinion, I have them, and I will tell you that when I have them, why I believe that. Nevertheless, I tell you all of the sources where I get my information. I'm not hiding anything from you. I'm telling you, I research these things all day, every day, 7 days a week. This is how my mind works. This is what I think about. This is my fucking wheelhouse. And this is where I get my information. These are the smartest people in the world, and they know what the fuck's going on. I want you to know what the fuck's going on. It doesn't do any good if I know what the fuck's going on. I got a very small world. I'm no Genghis Khan. I'm no Peter Thiel.
Mr. McMillan, would you like 30 seconds more?
Allow me to introduce myself. I represent the rent is too damn high party. People are working 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week in some a third job. Women can't afford to take care of their children, feed their children breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My main job is to provide a roof over your head, food on the table, and money in your pocket. This is politics as usual. Playing a silly game. It's not going to happen. The rent too damn high movement, the people I'm here to represent can't afford to pay their rent. They're being laid off right now as I speak. They can't eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Listen, someone's stomach, child's stomach just growled. Did you hear it? You gotta listen like me.
Okay,
let's
Mr.
talk
McMillan.
about the issue.
Mr.
People can't afford
Mr.
to pay their
Cuomo,
rent.
30
Stop.
seconds for you, sir.
Rent is too damn high.
Thank you. There is.
What did we just see there? We saw a real man and what a politician would look like if a politician was worth a flying shit. That's what we just saw. And then we saw the future governor, maybe the present governor at the time, or incumbent governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, laughing like a psychopath because he's an actor. He doesn't give a flying fuck about anybody who will be under his thumb later. I'm gonna watch it again. It was so damn good.
Mr. McMillan, would you like 30 seconds more?
Allow me to introduce myself. I represent the rent is too damn high party. People working 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week in some a third job. Women can't afford to take care of their children, feed their children breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My main job is to provide a roof over your head, food on the table, and money in your pocket. This is politics as usual. Playing a silly game. It's not going to happen. The rent too damn high movement, the people I'm here to represent can't afford to pay their rent. They're being laid off right now as I speak. They can't eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Listen, someone's stomach, child's stomach just growled. Did you hear it? You gotta listen like me.
Okay,
let's
Mr.
talk
McMillan.
about the issue.
Mr.
People can't afford to pay their
Cuomo,
rent.
30
Stop.
seconds for you, sir.
Rent is too damn high.
Thank you. There is.
Woo! That's some powerful stuff, right? So a ghoul laughs at humanity is what I wrote under that. Note that Andrew Cuomo of the Democratic Party appears in 2010, the Rent is Too Damn High party debate video, laughing like a ghoul as an authentic person and candidate named Jimmy McMillan spoke flawless sense on every human level, followed by the chuckles of fools in a slaughterhouse shoot of their own selection. Food, shelter, and medical care are human rights. If they're not, then give yours up. We'll wait. Where will you go then? I'm really curious as a person with nowhere to go. Maybe I'll come too. You should invite me. The rent is too damn high and no solutions are offered that will save our housing. Without housing, we're all refugees. Will us native-born Americans get reservations to flee to for our self-preservation? Why were reservations created? Who created them? What is this system of ownership that we accepted by virtue of our birth in this empire-claimed land? The choice, abundance or ownership. Well, that's the article that I just wrote you. The world is abundant, yet allegedly owned by endless rich dickholes whom we've never seen in our present moment, nor observed in our physical space. What is real? How do you know? Why do kings need heads? Think about that. Think about if you rent your apartment. Think about if you rent your home. And the person you rent it from, the person, let's imagine that it's from some real estate corporation. Now, who's going to come toss you out of that house? Well, maybe the sheriff would do that if they get a court order. But the sheriffs can only toss out so many people. Is the corporation that owns your house going to come? Is the landlord that owns your house going to come rouse you and toss you out on the street? Have you ever even met them? Do you know them? Do you know who owns your apartment complex? No, because it doesn't matter. That's an illusion. And the fact that somebody tells you that the only place where you can lay your head is a place that you rent from some oligarch, and if not, then you need to sleep on the street and die tonight, that's a pretty bad society. That's a pretty damn bad society. So we really need to think about what is this idea of ownership? What happened to the ownership of the indigenous peoples who owned all this, who occupied this land before we decided to own it? They were better occupiers than we are owners. One could argue, if we wanted to argue on the basis of connectedness to the natural world and the universe. This is the summary, and this drives it home, I think, for all of us in terms of what's going on here. All large-scale crime is an inside job. Running up and down the road, taking fingerprints and sending trash off to the crime lab just don't get it done. You're dealing with people, you got to be human. So what am I telling you there in that article? I'm going to show you the clip from the great movie Rancho Deluxe, which, by the way, is free on Tubi. If you got Tubi, you can go watch yourself some Rancho Deluxe for free. I watched it with my adult son a week and a half ago. He'd never seen it before, and laughed very hard, very very hard. Let's watch old Slim Pickens deliver the lines, because see they thought they had figured out the crime, but he figured out the crime because he knew all along it was an inside job. It's not the Russians that are getting us or spies or whatever. It's the people on the inside. It's your own government. It's your own oligarchs. It's your own bankers. It's your own CEOs. That's who's robbing you blind. It's an inside job, man.
Rule of thumb: you follow it, you might be able to hang on to this ranch of yours. All large-scale crime is an inside job. Running up and down the road, taking fingerprints and sending trash off to the crime labs, just don't get it done. You're dealing with people, you gotta be human. Rule of thumb: you follow it, you might be able to hang on to this ranch of yours. All large-scale crime is an inside job. Running up and down the road, taking fingerprints and sending trash off to the crime labs, just don't get it done. You're dealing with people, you gotta be human.
It's a pretty good rule of thumb. You follow it, you might just keep your ranch. So let's take a look over at the chat here. So Sam Lee makes the point that he wears the same clothes every day, and you can lower your expenses by spending less. That is absolutely true, Sam. In fact, the same thing happens. So let's talk about W-2 jobs, right? People make huge people buy clothing and shoes and all kinds of gear. Everything that you spend and consume is something that, as a poor person, I'm going to assume if you're watching me, you're poor. If you're not, you must really fucking hate me like Oracle Fast Money Trader, and I love that. My goal has always been to be hated by the best and worst people. So if you're here and you're poor, you can heed Sam Lee's advice and buy less. And if you buy less, you got to work less. And who are you working less for? Evil oligarchs that are fucking you into oblivion. So it all seems like a pretty good deal from that perspective of taking more for you and taking less, giving less to them, because they don't give it back. They're just takers. They're just greedy rat bastard takers that are never going to leave more for you, even if they screw somebody else and tell you the scapegoat's name. They're still not going to give you more. Speaking of which, here's kind of a cool little organization. I did this a couple weeks ago. These are all over the country. It's called Food Not Bombs. Food Not Bombs is pretty sweet little free deal. If it happens in your town, you can check it out. It's food.bombs. I'll put it in the chitter chatter here. There you go, Food Not Bombs. You get yourself a free vegan dinner and pick up some free vegetables to go home. That's a great deal. You can also go out and pick yourself some free blackberries. You can plant stuff in your garden. You can spend more time in your yard. You can do all kinds of things and give less to the people that do nothing but take from you. Give more to yourself, more to your family, more to your life, more to your present moment, less to them, less to their lies about the future and their delusions and their political bullshit, because they don't care if we're alive or not, and we do. They don't care if you survive this. We care. It is in our interest to start looking after ourselves to the exclusion of corporations. In fact, corporations need to go. We need new systems and new incentives. Now, this is one of the things, and we're going to have a special guest coming up in a minute. Some of you may know him as Brian. That's your little teaser. So, I'm sending him the link. Excuse my lack of present moment attention there with you for a second. This present moment that we have is truly magical. And when you realize the power of it, the power of the delusions and the power of the lies and the power of the gaslighting and the narcissism that is causing you to feel all this stress starts waning a little bit. Not quickly, not easily. You got to trust the process. You might have to spend like 8 months walking like me. You might have to walk for 8 months. But after 8 months, if you trust that process and walk long enough, stuff starts to change a little bit. And that's pretty cool because when it changes, the pain goes down. And the pain of this bullshit system that we're expected to survive with full-blown gaslighting on a daily basis is awful. It's just absolutely patently fucking awful. And it's awful to watch people go through, right? We suffer moral injury by walking by our neighbors living in tents on the sidewalk. We're not supposed to see that. We're not supposed to see, we're supposed to have arguments with our fellow country people about whether we're blowing up little babies across the world or not. We're not supposed to have to argue about those things because they're not supposed to happen. We're not supposed to be doing those things. So it's a very, very difficult time to be alive, very difficult time to operate as a laborer when capital no longer has any desire to use you. Right? So this is, let's talk, we're waiting for Brian to come on. Let's talk about what the corporate world demands. What the corporate world demands, what American capitalism and our markets demand is exponential growth, 3% every quarter. So 3% and then 3% and then 3%, 3%. Well, you do the compounding, right? So 3% and then it's 3% on top of that. So it compounds. That's exponential growth that happens. And it happens even more than that in AI and tech markets and all types of commodities and gambling that wealthy people do to generate money. They're getting exponential financial growth. So while they're getting exponential financial growth like this, your wages are growing by, if they grow at all, are growing by 1% or a fraction of 1% a quarter or less, or they're flat for a decade, or they're flat for 20 years. And then you gotta remember that inflation is pushing that down, right? So these guys are getting exponential growth that far exceeds inflation, and you're getting no growth, not even keeping up with inflation. So how's that going to work for you, right? Because the curves just keep getting further apart. It just keeps I'm explaining why during the pandemic in 2020, the wealth gap grew even larger as the shutdown came and small businesses closed, and then they got all this fake oligarch bullshit funding that kept people open in a sense. But as soon as the PPP timeline ran out, all these infrastructure, all these businesses closed. All the companies that got this PPP money, once they didn't have to pay it back to the federal government, that capital could take their money and go home, right? Because human labor employees are a pain in the ass, right? You guys require all kinds of stuff, care and feeding and management and support and benefits and wages and all these different things. And capital has ways to use itself. Wealthy people have ways to use capital now that don't involve you. They don't need you anymore. And if they don't need you anymore, then you're nothing but expense. You're nothing but a liability. And if you're a liability to an empire, they're going to try and rub you out. That's what empires do. Empires are known for rubbing people out. They're really, really cruel, nasty entities. Terrible. terrible, terrible entities that don't. And remember, corporations are not human. There are humans that form corporations. There are humans that profit from corporations, but corporations are like AI. It's not hard bullshit. It's not soft bullshit. They don't even care. They just want to produce money, right? So you keep hearing that corporations are here to maximize shareholder returns, and that's the only reason that you're sideways, Brian. The only reason that that corporations are here in our great American democracy and capitalism is to serve the interests of shareholders. Well, I guess you could buy that, but here's the problem. And Daniel Schmachtenberger says it so very nicely. I'm going to bring up Brian while I finish this point. Uh, if that's what you believe, that that corporations only serve that function, then what they will do is what they are doing, which is they internalize all profits and all money, and they externalize all the, I'm sorry, they societalize all the externalities. So all the negatives. So let's say I'm going to make sticky chemicals for Teflon on your pan so that your eggs don't stick. I'm going to say that's a great fucking deal, because you have any idea how many non-stick pans I'm going to sell as DuPont with the Teflon surface. That's great. I'm going to spray it on your couch. I'm going to spray it on your cat. I'm going to spray it on your kid. Everything's covered in Teflon. But guess what? Everything's covered in Teflon. Your body, every cell of your body now has sticky chemicals in it. So what they did is they took all the profits and they socialized on you and your family the sticky chemicals, the PFEs, the things that are polluting our environment, our water, and the very cells of our body. So that is what corporations will do. Corporations, I think I said before, corporations are poison. Corporations are here and created to poison humanity. It's what they are. They're created, they're a vehicle to give immunity and plausible deniability to wealthy people and make them unaccountable for the damage they do to the world. That's a bad system with bad incentives. And Daniel Schmachtenberger says it every bit as good as that, probably better. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can hear
Can
you.
you hear me?
I can
Okay.
hear you
Am
very,
I coming
very
in
nicely,
okay?
sir. You're coming in. You're a
Okay,
little
great.
fuzzy. You look like you got. You look like you maybe got some schmutz on the camera. Maybe rub the camera a little bit.
Really? Okay. Let me
Yeah,
see.
here you go. You little. I don't know, or either that. Yes. You had an angelic glow to you before, but
Holy
how you doing,
Moses.
Brian?
All
Good to
right.
see you. Brian
It's
is a fellow 1968 born Generation X person and dear friend of mine. Brian and I kind of met. Actually, we did meet because of Glitchgate. He did a video on my video, and I've never met Brian before. Now he's one of my best friends in the entire world. We talk almost every freaking day. How you doing, Brian?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm doing pretty good. Although, see, the best thing about having a channel about the gig economy and trying to push through what you need to let people know about how bad it is and what you've been talking about corporations is the fact that I'm living in what I preach to people. In other words, what better way than to be living kind of in poverty at the moment and no job and no car and
Well, so
all of that.
Brian, this is good though. This is the reason why, and I absolutely fucking hate selling myself in my own work, but this is the reason why people should be listening to your work and my work and Thomas's work, etc. You guys, some people may remember the famous book called Nickel and Dimed, which was written about minimum wage labor back in the 80s or 90s, and it was a bestseller and a big deal. Well, that was real cool, but what that was a real wealthy reporter who went and cosplayed in minimum wage jobs and then had conjugal visits and weekends at her wealthy Manhattan townhouse with her wealthy Manhattan husband. So that's cool and everything. I mean, she brought some truths to light and she told us their stories. But I'm really living in poverty, and I have for a very long time because I gave the system and the government a couple big FUs, and they tend to hold it against me real bad.
Right, right,
So
right.
that's good because I've always planned on being hated by the worst people. But Brian, who doesn't deserve it as much as I do, has also been having a hard time. Why don't you tell us what
Right.
the hell that you've been going through, Brian?
Well, I mean, early on, you were talking about like how you have a car and then you're trying to keep a business going and trying to make that work. The problem is that unless you had major, large amounts of capital to do so, to keep this so-called gig business going, it's almost impossible because the whole system is rigged against you from the start. The fact that they tell you, oh, you'll make up to a certain amount of money per hour. And it doesn't really matter how much money you're really making per hour because to even keep your head above water, you probably have to make between 35 and $50 an hour. And most people don't do that. So what they have is what I was talking about a couple of years ago, where I found out through my research that most gig workers, it doesn't even matter what app you're using, except possibly the apps that have to do with like cargo van, things like Curry and stuff like that. But eventually, see the thing with the gig apps, this dirty secret that's out is that all of the gig apps are owned and controlled by the very same people that own the other ones because they're all principal stockholders. And I did major research looking into that many times. I've brought videos about it and showed the same names for the same companies. So it's really one big monopoly, but it's rigged against you from the start. The only time that it seemed to be okay for anyone to be in the gig economy was at the very beginning, where they were like, especially with like DoorDash, because DoorDash would give you maybe $10 base pay to deliver an item, whether you went 500 feet across the street or 10 miles away. And speaking of that, they're really sending people on long distance trips now, like more than ever. Because I'm in touch with my friend James, who's from Minnesota, and he's been getting pummeled with these like 15 and 17-mile deliveries. And what's happening is if you don't take them, they just ghost pause you. They put you in a ghost pause. So the thing about the gig economy is it's rigged from the start. And right now, most people are, I mean, this has been the most horrible summer for just about everyone. And back in July, I think it was July, just around July or late June, I got deactivated from DoorDash. And but 2 weeks before that, I got deactivated from Uber. And I really believe that they're trying to get rid of all of the long-term dashes who and people who are in a delivery service, because we're the ones who know how to try to avoid the pitfalls and all the things that happen with that. Like, for instance, they're hiding information, they're hiding miles, they're adding miles to the people's deliveries, they're not showing them full transparency on what they should be making, on a job. So how can you really call that a business? I like some of these people that have channels, they're just misleading people. So that's the reason why my channel exists. It's the reason why Jeff's exists. And it's just it's been a bad summer for a lot of people. So my
And
car is
and
dead now. I mean, it's
look at this, Brian. So this is an article that came out last. Well, I saw it yesterday. I guess it was from the 13th. Ride-hailing platforms earnings underscore gig economy's momentum. So while we're suffering,
yeah.
okay, the gig economy in the financial markets is making momentum. So if you think the financial markets or the corporations care about the slaves, we know they don't, right? So we're not going
No.
to. We'll take. But what I want to point out is this, Brian, because we know that layoffs aren't just coming, and unemployment isn't just among lower wage workers. It's also very much amongst high wage workers all over the sectors. Google was stashing away employees that did nothing, literally nothing, right? They were just hoarding employees. Now they're getting rid of them. Intel's getting rid of a whole bunch of people. Nike's getting rid of people. Everybody's getting rid of people. Again, just like us, physical infrastructure, Walgreens and Rite Aid and Big Lots, all these brick and mortar stores don't have exponential growth. What do
Right.
you get in a world where oligarchs and people with money only want to invest in things with existential growth? You get only exponential growth. You get only business proposals, which are generally scams and bullshit, but they pretend they're going to give exponential growth. So what happens to our physical world, to our bridges and roads and infrastructure and physical buildings that we might want to go in to buy groceries or tampons? They're going to go by the wayside because they don't provide exponential financial growth. They just provide a business which employs people and has a community and does stuff. But see, that has value. This is the problem, is that
Right.
the incentives of the people that only want exponential growth don't care about the value of our present moment in our human lives. It's a real freaking problem and conflict. So I want to read this one part though.
Sure.
Uh, the side hustle, and I always hated that because none of us are hustling, none of us on the side, we're all just trying to live. So, and the ancillary streams of income those hustles provide now is a lifeline in the paycheck to paycheck economy. Now, this is the best part, Brian, across all income levels. So people that used to earn six figures, raise your hand. You're now an Appslave.
Right.
Congratulations. You might make
Right.
$10,000 this year. Earlier this year, payments reported that 22% of all US consumers work on the side to enhance their cash flow. Okay, so first of all, calling what a consumer earns cash flow is just a bunch of hunk of shit, right? They're pretending that we're some kind of financial entity. No, none of us are doing our fucking cash flow reports. We're living fucking paycheck to paycheck. That's not cash flow.
There's been a
According,
study out on that too.
yeah, according to the data, 23% of paycheck to paycheck Americans who say keeping up with their monthly bills is a challenge look for active supplemental income. So this is an ad for app slaves, right? This is an ad for app slaves because remember, if they can get some fucking former $100,000 a year making rube to drive for 15 total hours in the history of his life on this platform, they do nothing but win. Every newbie that comes on and
Right.
drives their car into the ground and makes nothing, they're just winning, winning, winning. For people that know the game and start playing and start fighting back with their primate brain, you're not as useful to them, and the artificial intelligence will treat you as such.
Oh yeah.
Americans who say keeping up with their monthly bills, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, 26% of workers earning more than $100,000 per year told Payments Intelligence that they worked at least one side job. Holy shit. You're telling me people making 100 grand a year are doing
That's
side
pretty bad.
jobs?
That's
And
pretty
you think,
bad.
wait a minute, Brian. No, but our audience here, our audience thinks they're competing against immigrants. They're competing against people that earned $100,000 last year and immigrants. That's better,
Right.
right?
That's
So
right.
we need to understand what a fucking hunk of bullshit this entire thing is. I read this about midnight last night, which is 3 o'clock in the morning for Brian, who lives on the East Coast. I live on the West Coast, and I still said it to him. I'm like, these assholes. I mean, this is just it would be comical if we weren't being genocided.
It's
Yeah,
true.
the W says they're living dime bag to dime bag. God bless you. God bless you, and may the fentanyl may you stay fentanyl free. Because
You know,
here's the thing, the fentanyl's there for a reason. It's so we can off ourselves because we're so fucking miserable, and that's the sad truth. And don't off yourself
that's
because you're so fucking
that's
miserable,
another
please.
side to this whole thing is the addiction thing, where addictions come in, like drugs and gambling and all kinds of stuff.
Well,
Because
and
when
app
people
slavery,
can't,
app slavery.
eh,
Remember, the apps are addictive. They're designed to be addictive. This whole thing is an addiction play. This whole thing is a narcissistic abuse of an addictive abuse victim.
yeah,
This is
that's true.
horrible. This is truly a horror.
And
We dash,
then
we dash. We
when you
acknowledge
try,
it.
yeah, and then when you try to get out of the gig economy, like me, you have narcissistic personality disorder people that you have to deal with through HR.
That's right.
Human
That's right.
resources.
Well, so let's talk about the W-2 world for a little bit because a lot of us, our friend Kevin over at Gig Thug and Chud, has done some videos, and what he reminds us is that he could make some good money over in the W-2 world, and it's interesting over there. And if you can get the W-2 gig, or don't, I'm mixing my terms. That was good. If you can get a W-2 employment, that can be beneficial. But again, Brian, I was talking about before you came on that employment is not a binary. It's not an on-off situation. $1 of employment is not better than zero. $1 of employment will waste your time. So is it $10 per hour? Well, that's not enough. It's just not. I'm better off taking a walk. What about 20? I still want the walk. How about 40? Now you're talking. I might give you some of my walk time to go do something for $40 an hour because that might actually be relevant to me in this economy. But this is the calculus that we have to start making. And when you start looking for the W-2 jobs that want a commitment of your time for 40 hours a week, 5 hours a day, let's say a $20 per hour job. Well, that's probably not going to keep a single person housed in a big city. So you have to. It becomes a real weird calculus, doesn't it, Brian, of whether it's better to stay unemployed or take employment that doesn't meet your needs, because you still only got so many heartbeats. You can't take two 40-hour-a-week jobs. No, employers don't work together hand in hand to help you work 80 hours a week, right? The one employer you have is going to want you to be available for them. Brian happens to be taking a job that's where they operate 7 days a week, so he doesn't even know which of the 7 days a week that he might be working. So there are limitations, just like you get throttled and capped by gig apps, as Major and Brian often talk about. Major Deliveries, our friend here, and Brian often talk about being capped and throttled. Well, you get capped and throttled by those fucking capitalist pigs too, don't you, Brian? Because they make sure that they're colluding together to push our wages down in a time of high inflation and high unemployment.
Well,
It's
see,
terrible.
this is the big thing, because inflation, the money that you make at your current job cannot, unless you're getting an exponential amount of increases in pay per year or per whatever it is, you cannot keep up with that inflation, especially if hyperinflation comes in, which that's next. And what's happening is that you can't offset what you need to do to even keep your head above water. So this is why people are turning to the gig economy and more, and some do it just for a little extra money or whatever, right? But come on, let's face it, if someone's doing it for extra money, wouldn't you want to use your free time to do something else rather than working? So
Well,
it's a tough thing.
and I'm going to argue we're not in the free time stage of our life. We're in the consciousness stage of our life. We're fighting depression. We're fighting stress. We're fighting anxiety. We're fighting learned helplessness, right? Once we get beaten down so hard and so long, we just succumb to it. Because we are biological beings, Brian, we're primates. We can only take so much before we crack. And what they're doing is they're cracking us. They're cracking us, and we got to stick together because we're all we got. I wrote a piece about spending time in jail in solitary confinement during my days of civil rights, and one of the men in there taught me very nicely that we're all we got. Inside, doesn't matter if you're in opposite gangs or you're black or white or whatever else. If you're in the county, the hell of county jail, we're all together trying to survive one of the worst places on earth. And we got to remind that. But we used to talk about during the Glitchgate days, like people wanted to kick aggravating others out of the community. You can't kick anybody out of the sewer. You can kick them up to street level, but street level ain't taking new inhabitants. So we're just stuck down here in the sewer together. We got to make this shit work, Brian.
Yeah, it's true. And, it's 1 year basically since Glitchgate, which was a very big thing because a lot of people were believing that they could make a whole lot of money where others were making it. And then they realized, wait a minute, how is that guy making money?
It was a bait and switch situation where there were people that had hacks into the game and were, as usual on YouTube, showing results on YouTube that you could not replicate in your market and on your smartphone in your life. And even people that aren't using a glitch, we have to remember that every single individual is playing corporate artificial intelligence one-on-one. Nothing that you see from anyone else can be taken as indicative of what's going to happen in your game of Mario Kart. You're playing your own game of Mario Kart in your own little world, and the game's playing you. Anything else is just that narrative you're putting in your head, and you're telling yourself fucking stories. You can do that if you want. If it makes you happy, you can dream there's a market of people waiting for their food, but that's not true. In the real world, it's millions of hamburgers and millions of French fries and millions of Cokes, all being negotiated by global corporations and being arbitraged into a slave market that you are the ass end of.
Yeah, and we're seeing the
Arbitrage just means buying low and selling high, by the way, Brian.
right. We're seeing, like you said, the beginning of the end of DoorDash, but the gig economy in general, because
Right. And it's specifically
not sustainable.
buying low and selling high across market boundaries in particular. That's what arbitrage is. So arbitrage, for example, works with currency, right? So you take a whole bunch of US dollars and then you go buy stuff in Canadian dollars, and you get arbitrage through the exchange rate if it's favorable. And so so you get arbitrage by trading cross borders. But it is not the individual sale. There's no market. There's again, it's a pool of resources on an unfathomable to humans scale that is operating within a closed system, and it's presenting itself to that individual user on their slave phone as an app slave. Is presenting itself to them as a real world scenario. If you've ever played, you can play games like Pokemon Go, right? I've never played it, but
Yep.
You could actually go to physical places and walk around to a hiking spot and catch Pikachu in the air or something like that. It's a game. So that is more akin to what you're doing than a market for food.
Well,
or
you know why
or whatever else.
You know why they made that game? So they could just map out where everyone lived and everything.
Well, okay, so this is going on with everything. This is going on with your cars. This is going on with your cell phones. This is going on with the Ring cameras at the doorbells. While these techno-feudalists are developing these things, like Elon Musk, they're working with the CIA and the FBI and the security state to make sure that all of their cameras and all their information can be fed directly into the surveillance system and mapped out. And then, as Jeff Watts will tell you, once they get the self-driving cars, the Waymo and the bullshit that they already have, you're mapping all the routes and providing the street routes. Like we are the little, we are the little, what's the train one, the something express, where they got the little kids in the engine.
Trying to think of what that is.
It was a movie and a TV show. I can't remember, but anyway, we are just the little human worker that's suffering in the darkness, in the soot and sweat, while these Goliath machines are running, and we're just there to push the buttons and pull the levers when we need to. It's really very sickening, Brian.
It definitely is. And you were mentioning something earlier, and I had it in my tip.
We're going back to so Brian has been looking for, because your car died, right? So rest your car's soul. It was a good app slave seed for a short while. So you're going to this, but what Brian has found is that human resources and corporations, how do they treat job seekers in their 50s, Brian?
It's almost like you don't exist.
Right. It's a humiliation ritual, virtually. It is. This is the thing. This is the gaslighting of this system, is that app slavery is not financially viable. So we go back to W-2 work, and then you get treated like garbage. You get the kind of stuff that Brian has faced in his job interviewing processes with HR as a former corporate puke myself. Brian can attest to the fact I get horribly upset and start screaming on the phone as they abuse him, because it's just heinous. It's just heinous. And just because they're posting jobs and interviewing people, it doesn't even mean the jobs really exist.
Oh,
right?
they'll
a lot of times
you.
They're keeping pipelines open. And here's something even sicker.
Yeah.
One of the first things you learn in economic study is that a bureaucracy exists to perpetuate its own existence. Let's imagine a corporation that was no longer going to hire people. HR would still post job postings and interview people because HR wants its jobs.
Exactly.
Isn't that weird? HR is there to process people just in case.
Exactly.
HR is there to have a job just in case. And that's what it comes down to right, is that the privileged people are the people that get to keep their place in the empire and keep their place in the economy, and the rest of us are in big fucking trouble real fast. Because anybody living to paycheck, as soon as that paycheck happens, what happens, Brian? As soon as that paycheck ends, what happens?
You start not being able to pay bills. You start losing maybe your ability to live where you live, and
And
voila,
your mental health declines, and your physical health declines, and your financial health declines, and your family situation declines, and what else declines? Everything.
pretty much everything. And here's the thing: those people you talked about in the tents that are laying in the tents, they didn't choose to be where they are. It happened through some
Absolutely.
non-happenstance.
If it was a rational choice, they would absolutely choose not to be there. Our friend Dr.
Oh yeah.
Philosopher notes the point that I saw in the media today, something about a proposal that would end the tax on tips. Well, that doesn't matter because tips are no way to earn a fucking income.
Nope.
And so most people don't
And there's
report
no
their tips.
guarantee.
Most people don't report their tips for taxes anyway. This is just political grandstanding. This is worthless to us. I'm afraid. I'm sorry, but nobody should be paying their bills via tips and a tax on tips. So this is the wild thing. There's a guy named Neil McCoy. What's his last name? Neil. It's a three. Hold on, Neil McCoy-Ward. Okay, so Neil McCoy-Ward. Hold on. This guy is an economist, finance type guy who I tend to watch. I watch a lot of people daily. I tend to watch him daily.
I do too.
He lives on the Isle of Man, Brian, where they do the fantastic motorbike races where people die. Very unfortunately, that's where this guy lives. But he made the excellent point the other day. Here, I'm going to show that our taxes don't finance our governments. That's a lie. Our governments are financed with bonds and financial instruments at the highest levels. Our taxes, particularly those of us that are not in the 1%, are completely and totally irrelevant to the operations of the empire in every way, shape, and form. So what are taxes then if they don't actually contribute to the empire? They're a form of social control. That's all that they are.
Exactly.
Taxes, just like voting, I'm afraid, is your buy-in to the system. Taxes is the way that they get you to mentally say, oh, I'm involved in this system and this system is my system. Okay, is that true? Well, no, it's not true, because absolutely, undeniably, all academic research has shown and shows now that voting and political activity from the masses has no impact upon policy. None, right? There's none. So as much as we could get hyped up for the Super Bowl of a November election, it doesn't fucking matter, Brian. And I personally couldn't give a shit. I don't care. There's nobody that cares less about what politician says they're in charge than me, because I don't.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
So, that's what we call the left-right paradigm. And a lot of people get trapped in that because they think that someone's going to come and, quote, save them. Right. And those people were handpicked. You might have 10 people on one side, 10 people on the other, but at the end of the day, they already know that whoever goes in there, they're all a president is not elected. He's selected. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So like once you realize that, you can look past that narrative.
And like many things in a failing empire, they now say the quiet parts out loud and don't hide it very well. I mean, Kamala Harris has just been installed as your DNC party candidate without receiving a single vote. In fact, when she was in primaries as a presidential candidate, she did very terribly. So if there's now, they did the same thing with Joe Biden, by the way. The Republicans, although he's much more of a cult figure and much more popular on a broader basis, do the same thing with Donald Trump. These are chosen actors that are fulfilling the roles. And here's my biggest problem with them. Right? I even like the chosen actors better before they were all trying to commit genocide through World War III.
That's
we've
right.
got war party versus war party, which means I don't do war parties. I don't do war.
Me neither. I'm right with you, man, on
Yeah,
that one.
and so Dr. Philosopher, we are dealing with multiple things. We're dealing with the multipolar trap, which is the international stalemate of technology and military and financial machinations that we have, all fueled by the AI. There, Dr. Philosopher, so you're right on track. Yes, we do have multipolar trap. We're in a meta crisis. All of these things are connected, and I made the point, I think, before you logged on, Dr. Philosopher, that the one of the great failings, as pointed out by Daniel Schmachtenberger, of empires and of colonialism is the desire and insistence upon fractionalizing world, the connected world into separate things. There are no separate things. There are no separate things. There are no separate things, Brian.
No,
There's no
everything's
separate things.
connected.
Right. So
Yeah.
so if I sell off the diamond mine under your family, that is doing a very bad thing. If I clear cut the forest of your home, that's a very bad thing. If I make you homeless, that's a very bad thing, not just for you, but for your family, for your neighborhood, for the community, for the city, for the nation. We're really screwing it up here, Brian.
It's true. I mean, look at the economy, what it was even a year ago. Everything is doubled and tripled in price, if you don't notice. And then drivers,
And
gig
that's again
drivers,
why. Why is it doubling and tripling in price, Brian? It's doubling and tripling in price because the corporations and the wealthy oligarchs and the markets demand exponential returns. They're
that's right.
exponential, we're human. They're exponential, we're human. They're exponential, we're human. We don't do exponential, Brian. There's just one of me and one of you, and we have a very small world in our little senses and control, and everything else is a bunch of bullshit. We've been sold a bunch of bullshit. There's a book and a movie called 1984. You should watch it, and you'll find out
George
that in
Orwell.
1984 they present an entire dystopic world that may or may not be an illusion. You don't know, right?
Right.
Yeah, if there was a movie called Wag the Dog, I mean, I'm okay. War is a bad example because people are dying, and I don't need to make any joke about that. But there
Right.
is such a thing as false flags, right? We can make events, we can make narratives, we can put on shows that seem as real as can be. What do you think every politician is doing? They all know they're lying. They're all doing it for money. They're all taking backdoor money. They're all doing dirty deals. They're all trying to get rich. That's what the job is, man.
Just
There is
just
no
what
such
came
thing as an honest politician in Washington. It doesn't
It's
exist. It's
true.
not possible.
There's a thing that came to mind, a movie that I saw back in 2005, and I've played it on my channel and I've mentioned it. It's called Freedom to Fascism. It was by a producer, director, Aaron Russo. And that's a very interesting documentary because it's about the IRS and what's going on with people's taxes. And that amendment was never ratified, the 16th Amendment, to be able to take
So
money from.
this is what's so fascinating to me, in that we know that our tax dollars don't amount to a hill of beans, but who is the IRS focused upon enforcement for? The poor.
That's right. It's never for the rich.
Because it's a fucking tool of enterprise terror and of enterprise empire terror. It's a tool of empire and enterprise terror is what
That's
taxes
right.
are, right?
That's right.
And let's be honest, most people working in Appslavery, Brian, don't even make enough money to have to pay taxes. So again, aren't we just in wacky
Absolutely
world?
correct.
Aren't we just in wacky world? We are. We are. Well, this has been long and exciting and fun, and I think and I
Thank you for
hope that
having
this
me.
was really good content, Brian. I hope we can put both these little videos together. We'll share them out on your channels, and
Absolutely.
folks, I hope you share this stuff because I've been doing a lot of work this year for about 7, 8 months, and this is the shit I've been thinking about. And it's all about your survival and Brian's survival and my survival and your family's survival. And it's about also your quality of life while you are surviving, right? being in pain, seeing you guys depressed, seeing you struggling myself, or being depressed, all of this stuff. This is stuff we have to get through together. We have to be a community. We have to use our intelligence and our senses and our present moment and our consciousness, and we can get through the pain. And when we're through the pain and out of crisis, guess what? We make better decisions, and we're less vulnerable to a bunch of fucking terrorists and oligarchs who tell us lies. Because when we're vulnerable, we start believing that maybe somebody will save us. Maybe Elon Musk and Donald Trump are really the freedom duo. Maybe they're really the Batman and Robin of freedom, but they're not. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are two terrible human beings. Terrible. Absolutely terrible human beings. Their own kids don't fucking like them. At least Elon Musk has some kids that fucking hate that guy's guts, and so does Donnie Trump. So let's not, let's be a little careful about who we idolize.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Jeff. I just wanted to say that, whenever it's a chance for, individually, for people to help educate other people through, meeting people on a one-on-one basis. That's what I was doing all the time when I was driving, delivering and all. I would just try to tell people about stuff and tell them about different channels to go to. And we have to wake them up,
And that's a really good point. And I want to finish on this point because I want to give people some hope. I do believe there's hope. There is a thing called the Consilience Project that Daniel Schmachtenberger works on that I think is extremely worthwhile. And it's one of a number of different types of projects going. But there are organizations and people out there that are working for answers that absolutely know academically and logically that new systems and new incentives need to happen. And if we have new systems and new incentives, Brian, then people like Jeff Watts or like you or like Glitch Dash or like Sam Lee or like Dr. Philosopher can be more entrepreneurial and find ways to succeed in new systems with new incentives that are fair. Right now, we are stuck and trapped as app slaves, as slaves of an empire in a system where the incentives are wrong and we are not allowed to succeed. Okay? It's not you. It's not me. It's not us. It's a bad, broken, organized criminal designed system.
Corporatocracy.
That's right. And we can call lots of these. We can call it a kakistocracy, which is a ruling class of the worst people. We can call it a kleptocracy, which is a ruling class of thieves. We can call it a lot of good fucking things, right?
It's all of the above.
They're all bad, and they'd all be true. But the point is overall that that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we call it. It doesn't matter what matters are the qualities in our life. Anybody will tell you, and Dr. Sapolsky does a very good job of this because he's been studying human behavior his entire life and career, and he's an older retired Stanford professor now. That people at the end of their lives across all cultures uniformly on their deathbed do not tell people they'd wish they'd spent more time at the office and done more work and spent more time trying to gain wealth. Nobody says that anywhere. Okay, so why then are we stuck in this present moment hell of thinking that material items are our key to salvation? Well, it's because we're sick, Brian. We're not doing well right now.
Yeah, and people tend to it's human nature to be selfish.
Thank you,
in other words, that's what this capitalist society is all about, is I want to have more stuff. I want to have the American dream. Well, the American dream is gone now. There is no American dream. You're in an American nightmare.
and it was a lie to get us to buy in. Now, it's a lie that's part of a Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme works better the earlier you get in. But we're now in late stage empire, late stage Ponzi scheme. All the things that worked for the boomers and our parents when they bought a house for $15,000 don't work now. Right. And that's never going to happen again. And by the way, if you think real estate and houses are an exponential market, That's a lie. They're made that way and propped up that way by financiers.
That's
Left
right.
alone, real estate and housing would be eminently affordable for you. Rent seekers, people that bought up land and bought up property and made it scarce in your community where they don't even fucking live, those are the people that drove up the cost of your housing. So again,
There's,
the wrong systems, the wrong incentives.
there's three basic things in life: is food, water, and shelter. And shelter includes housing. And those three things should be universal and never taken advantage of or anything. And people shouldn't have to worry about where they're going to lay their
Well,
head at night or where
and
they're
here's
going to
here's the bottom line. If that isn't the case, Brian, we're just going to watch our neighbors or ourselves die of genocide, and I don't want to do that. So
That's right, me neither.
I reject a system that wants my neighbors to die of starvation and houselessness and genocide. I reject it, and I refuse to vote for it or support it.
I agree with you. I'm right with you, Jeff, on that.
All right, my brothers and sisters, and everyone everywhere, we wish you peace. This is Brian over there from DoorDash Sucks. I'm JTB, Jeff Thomas Black. We'll be back sooner or later or not. We'll find out. Like, today's been great, though, and I hope you share this with your friends. This is the second part of a two-part, unintentionally two-part podcast. The first part was not terribly very long, but I think there was good content, if I remember correctly. It was a long time ago.
It was.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Major, Dr. Philosopher,
Welcome.
Gary Day, Stephen Arrow, Sam Lee,
Take care, everyone.
Jerry, Hot Facts, Oracle Fast Money Trader, you're quite an asshole. Cynical girl, love ya. Time to Wake Up, Jay Stokes, Necro, all our good friends, Just Jackie, Bravada Mike chasing cats, as he always does. Burps before bed, GLM. Oh, GLM, there you are. I didn't even notice that GLM was in there, and your burps not burps before bed. I don't have my glasses on anymore. All right, everybody, peace. Keep it together and stay in that present moment. It's been good being with y'all. Good night.